Each one of us does genealogy in our own way, and that's really the fun of it. You get to focus on what really matters to you. But there are some things that every genealogist must do if they want their family tree to be accurate. Now, if you're just interested in spinning tales, then by all means, don't do what I'm about to tell you. But if you want it to be as accurate as possible, and I have faith in you that you do, then you really want the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth in your family tree. So that means you've got to find the original records for all the information that you're finding online. Now, I know when you find information online, it's really tempting to just accept it and to head off and look for the next thing. But don't. Resist the temptation. I've got 5 important reasons why you really should bother to stop and track down and look at the original record that information came from. Hi, I'm Louise Cooke. Welcome back to the Genealogy Gems YouTube channel, where we strive to provide you with the best information, innovation, and inspiration to help you grow your family tree. Today we're talking about 5 reasons why you need to go track down original records for information that you're finding online. So let's start with number 1. Many online records are simply way too vague. So records come in many forms, and many genealogy websites consider that each name that appears on a document is a record when they're counting records. So when you hear about 10 million records have been added to a website, it doesn't necessarily mean that 10 million genealogical documents have been added. It really means oftentimes that that's the number of names that they've added. And one document could have a lot of names. It could have, in the case of a death certificate, the name of the deceased, the name of the spouse, the name of the informant, the closest relative. So, there could be multiple people, and each one of those gets counted as a record. Recently, MyHeritage announced they've added 78 million new records to their website. However, many of these records are simply transcriptions. They're extracting the information off of whatever the original source was, and they're providing that. Now, that's all searchable, and that's terrific because it's just one more clue and one more piece of information. But sometimes when you go and look at the records themselves, that record really is just a transcription. There is no digital record to go look at. And sometimes they don't even tell you what the exact original record was. There will be clues though, so you can use those clues and run a search on those words. So if it talks about a particular location or a type of record or the name of the record, you could start searching online and find out where are those original records actually held. Sometimes they're on another genealogy website, but a lot of times, and I've seen this more recently, we're seeing more publicly available records coming to websites in the form of a transcription, and really they're coming from public databases, oftentimes governmental agencies, and very recently we've been seeing more recent records, people who may have just passed away a year or 2 ago. So there's a wide range of places where these can be coming from, but if that genealogy website got their hands on the record, chances are you could too. And it's really important to do that. And we'll talk more about some of those reasons in our next reason to go find original records. The second reason to go find the original record for information that you have found online is that what's important to you might not have been prioritized by the indexer. So the indexer is a person, perhaps even an artificial intelligence machine, that has gone through the records, the documents, and extracted information and provided it in a text form. And sometimes when you search on a genealogy website, that's all you're getting is just that typed text, that transcription of some of the key data off of the original document. I'll tell you about one example in my family. I was looking at a great-great-grandmother back in Germany. Her name was Louise, and she's listed as Louise Nikolowski in the Ancestry Record Hint. And technically, that's true. She was Louise Nikolowski at the time of the birth of her child. But if you pull up the original record, what you discover is she's not listed as Louise Nikolowski on the record. She's listed with her maiden name, and that would have been the case in those old German church records. So that's huge. I mean, trying to find maiden names, we've talked about that here on the channel before, can be really challenging. So we don't want to miss any opportunity. But if we had taken this record that we found online at face value and just extracted that information, put it in our database, or attached it to our online family tree, and never looked at the original document, we would have completely missed her maiden name. And that maiden name is the key to finding the next generation, her parents. The third reason why it's so important to go track down that original record for the information that you're finding online is that not all information is indexed. Now, we touched on this in our second reason, but there's a lot more than that. It's very common for large portions of information on a document not to be indexed. Here's the reason for that. Indexing costs money. So when a genealogy company takes a look at a new record collection they've gotten their hands on, they have some hard decisions to make. They have to decide, is that field of information, and oftentimes, let's say in the form of a church record, you'll see several columns, or in a census record, you have many, many columns. The 1950 census was an example of this. When there's that much data, the company has to look at that and say, what do we think would be of the most value to our users? And so they're going to index those fields because they've got to pay to not only have them indexed, but potentially also reviewed, sometimes by human eyes, sometimes by machine AI eyes, if you will. So that all costs money. So there's inevitably going to be information that gets left off the index. So that means when you go to the website and you do your searching, you're going to see it and it can give you the impression that's the complete record. But very often it's not the complete record. And again, tracking down and taking a look at the original digital scan of the record, or it may be that it hasn't been digitally scanned. It's possible that it's not available, or it's only available on a subscription website that you don't happen to have a subscription to. It may be very possible that that original is actually sitting in a courthouse somewhere or in a church. So we want to do our best to try to track down where is the original document, and let's go take a look at it to see if there's anything else that's of value to us in our research that the indexers or the company just didn't pick up on or didn't spend the money to index. The fourth reason to go track down the original record for that information that you're finding online is that different websites potentially have different digital scans of the same record. Websites sometimes do collaborate, and in those cases, they are working on the same collection. They might be working with the same digital images, but oftentimes they create their own digital scans. And that means that a record may be darker or lighter on one website to the next, or sharper or muddier, making it easier or more difficult to read. Also, digital scanning has come a long way over the years, and that means that many genealogy sites now are looking at some of the earlier scans they did, and they're realizing, that's pretty low quality by today's standards. So they may determine that it's worth going back and rescanning all that record collection because it's a very popular one, like some of the earliest census records that were digitized years and years ago. And that makes a lot of sense because a lot of time may have passed and technology has certainly changed. So even though you found that information many years ago, if you have any questions about what's on that document, it might be worth going back and researching for it. You may find that that record is actually a newly digitized image on the same website, or you might find that it's also available somewhere else. A lot of the partnerships that happen with Family Search. And the thing about FamilySearch.org is that it's free. So while you may have a paid subscription to something like Ancestry or MyHeritage, if there's anything that you're questionable on, or you didn't actually see the original document from one of those paid websites, head to FamilySearch.org, do a search, and see if they happen to have digitized images for that record. There's a good chance they might, and it's worth taking a look. And sometimes these websites also have tools that allow you to get a better look at the document itself. So you can look at the original scan, and Ancestry is a great example of this. And on some of theirs, you can take a look at that digital image, but they recognize that depending on where the information is that you need on that page, it might be clearer in one part than another. It might be clearer from page to page or muddier from page to page. So they give you tools that you can use that will alter the look of the page. And one of my favorites is when you can turn it into a negative image. Sometimes those words just pop out in a way that they were not as clearly visible by just looking at the original scan. I downloaded this digital scan from a website several years ago. It's kind of hard to decipher, so it was worth going back and finding it on another website. And indeed, I did find a clearer copy. So if you aren't sold yet from my first 4 reasons why it's really important and you have got to go get those original documents, let's hit reason number 5, which is viewing the original document allows you to verify that the words that were indexed accurately. When I first looked at this record, I thought that Louise's maiden name was Lexick, Lekcyzk. But after seeing a different version, a different digital scan of this document, I started to question my original assumption. Having the original document allows me to review the handwriting of the person who wrote these records. So we're expanding our view of just looking at the names of our particular ancestors, and we're really using the whole page, all of this sample handwriting from this same individual, to try to help us determine what he really wrote when it came to your ancestor's maiden name. Comparing the handwriting helped me determine that this little swish at the top is very likely actually the dotting of an I. It's just that he added a little extra flourish to it that we don't see on some of the other names. I also, by looking at the other text on this page, was able to reconfirm my original guess that this Z is actually a Z. As I compared the Z to other names with Z's that I think look very clear, I felt more reassured that I had made the right decision on that. I thought the name was Lekcyzk, but now I really think that name is LekizYk. You know, collecting more records is going to help you continue to either support your theory on the names of your ancestors and other information, or perhaps it will lend support to a different spelling, and maybe, hopefully, a more accurate spelling. And I found one more, so we got a bonus item for you. Another really good reason to go look at original documents is that you may have missed the second page. It's easy to do. If the indexer took information that primarily came off the first page, it may not be perfectly obvious, even when you click through and look at that page, the digital scan of it, that in fact it's a 2-page document and there's more information there. It's also possible that you downloaded that document years ago when you first started doing genealogy, and now you're a more experienced researcher, and it would be worth going back and looking at particular types of records that are prone to having second pages. Examples of this: census records, passenger list, passport records, even criminal records. Very often they're part of a portfolio. A probate would be another one that comes to mind. So even if you have some documents that you downloaded several years ago, if they're all just single pages and they fall in one of those categories, you might want to go back and do another search for them and check the images that come before and after that page and see if by chance there are a few more gems to be found. Well, those are my 5 reasons that you must track down those original records. I hope I've convinced you, and I'll bet there's even more reasons to do so. So I'm counting on you. Head down to the comments for this video. Let me and everybody else who comes by and watches this video know what you've found. What are some of the reasons that you've come across that have convinced you that those original documents are worth the time and the effort to track down? I hope that you'll continue to tune back in here to the Genealogy Gems YouTube channel. A great way to find out what we're going to be doing each and every week is to subscribe to the free newsletter. You can do that over at genealogygems.com. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.